Moving on for now, U.S. President Joe Biden held a telephonic conversation with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. During the 2-hour-long phone call, the Chinese President Xi Jinping warned Joe Biden against playing with fire over Taiwan. In a statement, the Chinese media quoted Xi Jinping and said that the United States should abide by the One China principle, further asserting how China firmly opposes Taiwan's independence and interference by external forces. However, according to a White House statement, Biden told Xi Jinping that the U.S. policy on Taiwan had not changed and that the U.S. strongly opposes unilateral efforts to change the status quo and undermine peace across the Taiwan Strait.
They exchange views on Russia's war in Ukraine and the global impacts it is having. And then on Taiwan, President Biden underscored that the United States policy has not changed and that the United States strongly opposes unilateral efforts to change the status quo or undermine peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. President Biden also raised the need to resolve the cases of American citizens who are wrongly detained or subject to exit bans in China, as well as long-standing concerns about human rights.
The call on Thursday came at a time when the American President Joe Biden is finding new ways to work with China amid growing global competition and tensions between the two countries over human rights, global health, and economic issues. In recent weeks, Beijing has issued escalating warnings over a potential visit to Taiwan by the United States House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi, saying that it would view such a trip as a provocation. Earlier this week, U.S. President Joe Biden had expressed concern over Pelosi's Taiwan visit, saying the U.S. military officials believed that it was not a good idea for Pelosi to visit the island right now. Apart from contention over Taiwan, U.S. President Joe Biden also touched on a raft of other issues, including China's genocide and forced labor practices. Meanwhile, a senior Biden administration official has said that both Biden and Xi Jinping discussed a possible face-to-face meeting during the call. And the last time the two leaders spoke was in March, which was shortly after Russia began its invasion of Ukraine.
Good to see you.
And with me on the broadcast this minute is Susan Teherani from New York. Susan, if we look at the statements released by the U.S. and China on this phone conversation, the tensions palpable even in those statements. Get us up to speed with the latest on that visit, the likelihood of that visit by Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan.
Yeah, with the two statements regarding the Chinese, it's just classic Chinese propaganda. And then with the president, one expert was saying it almost seems like they were on two different phone calls. Regarding Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, some believe that actually they're playing this out in public might not be to the benefit of the United States on the one hand. And Nancy Pelosi, although she hasn't expressed this visit and announced it officially, if she does back down right now and not make this visit to Taiwan, it would put the United States in a diplomatic disadvantage. It would appear as if Beijing is calling the shots when it comes to U.S. foreign policy. 2.5 hours of conversation between President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart, and we still don't know from the White House whether or not he asked about the origins of COVID-19, which started in Wuhan, China. And it's something that has prevented Xi Jinping from traveling outside of China himself. So it's not something that's off the cuff. So if the president of the United States can't really lead when it comes to China, then perhaps the House of Representatives, the Congress, would have to take that leadership role. And Nancy Pelosi might be doing that right now. Regardless, it's up to Pelosi whether or not she'll take this trip or not. But it's a curious situation, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. Just one note, usually after each conversation between Xi Jinping and Joe Biden, they both describe it as being constructive. This time, they both just described it as being candid.
Interesting, and we're coming back to you as and when we have further updates trickling in. Thanks very much, Susan, for now. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.